I hated my bus ride to my college. Not because it was long and boring, it was, but because I always had to sit at the back every day, because I was always the last to get on. To begin with, though, I used to love it there. All of my friends also sat at the back, always surrounded by a roar of laughter. We were all 16-year-old boys. After a point, however, a different, much louder roar emerged, set up by some of the other boys in the bus. These boys were angry. They shouted, bellowed across the bus to each other about me. I was not a man, they said. In fact, I was so not a man, they said, that despite their intense disgust, real men like them would still be biologically hardwired to want to have sex with me. At this point, they burst into laughter and high-fived each other. At this point, I felt so ashamed of myself that I wished I was dead each day. This happened each day for over a year, until finally one day, the loudest, most deranged boy, the one who'd started it all, enraged beyond control at my silence, walked over, sat down in front of me, and then turned to face me, this close, and then told me in excruciating, painstaking detail how he would rape me. And because I was that disgusting, I should enjoy it. I remember very slowly closing the book that I'd been pretending to read for over a year now. I looked up, locked eyes with him for the very first time, and said, "Come." No one ever said anything to me in that bus again. At 16, I dissented for the very first time. Back then, I didn't even know what it meant, dissent. But that morning, when finally pushed to my tipping point, I instinctively reached out for it, my power to just stand up. And it was all I needed. Dissent is all we need. Gandhi, India's father, we call him Bapuji, has always told us this. He believed that the only way we could win against oppression was through dissent. Gandhi's strategy to not fight brutality with belligerence or even violence was a deliberate one because of the very nature of the battle itself. In this one-sided war, only the oppressors are armed, always. And their brutality is as disproportionate. Our shouts are answered with their sticks, our stones with their bullets. Our dissent, however, is unanswerable. It is the bulletproof power of the human heart that pushes itself up against the barrel of a gun, its beating walls now stronger than the cold lead of the bullet it blocks. Dissent's strength isn't in its mechanics, like some ordinary weapon designed to just destroy. Dissent's strength is in its extraordinary courage designed to dismantle the weapon itself. Dissent isn't a plea for help, nor an appeal for mercy. No, enough! It's a war cry, and one that comes from the very core of our being. Gandhi, at his very core, was a simple man, and therefore, to win India's independence, he dissented with the simplest thing: salt. Almost a century ago, in 1930, Gandhi left his home in Ahmedabad, India, and marched for 24 days to the seaside town of Dandi. To free his country from a brutal, heavily armed British rule, Gandhi dissented against the British Salt Act of 1882, in which the British had bestowed upon themselves the monopoly over manufacturing, selling, and taxing salt in India to Indians. Dissenting for independence through a simple, everyday commodity, especially one as essential as salt, only served to highlight especially how unjust the injustice was. We were not only not free, we were not even allowed our own salt in our own land. Thousands joined Gandhi on his 240-mile-long salt march. And when he finally reached the ocean, Gandhi walked into it, picked up a lump of salt, and said, "With this, I'm shaking the foundations of the British Empire." And he did. India won its independence on August 15, 1947. Dissent can turn Gandhi, like you and I, unarmed, ordinary human beings, into heroes, each one different from the other, each one with a unique, unexpected superpower. If we could free an entire nation with salt, then could we also stop bullets with teddy bears? In the spring of 2001 in Quebec, Canada, 34 heads of state from across the Americas were gathering to sign the FTAA deal, the Free Trade Area of the Americas, a sweeping trade deal with deeply anti-democratic provisions. To keep protesters away, a giant wall, a giant fence made of barbed wire and concrete, 2.5 miles long, was erected around the old city. This fence was then armed with thousands of riot police. 5,148 tear gas canisters, along with 903 rubber and plastic bullets, were fired across that fence. The protesters dissented with a teddy bear. They gently catapulted a big, pink, fluffy teddy bear right over that fence and into the hailstorm of bullets that came from the other side. The FTAA did not get signed. Dissent is so powerful because dissent is so personal. It's our expression of who we are and why we matter. We cannot all be Gandhi, and we don't have to be. Just ask that teddy bear. All we have to do is just stand up in whatever way each of us can. So how many different ways of standing up, of dissenting, does that then make? Only as many ways as there are as many of us. Mathematically, 7.8 billion ways, at least. When we stand up, we become powerful. But when we stand up together, we become infinitely powerful. It is because of us that dissent is infinite. Guns are not. A gun was used on a young man by the name of Matthew Shepard 22 years ago in Wyoming, USA. Matthew was only 21, 5 feet 2 inches tall and very delicately built. He was fluent in 3 languages, studying to become a human rights advocate, and openly gay. On the evening of October 6, 1998, Matthew went to a bar, but never got to go home. He was found later that night, tied to a fence. That gun, he wasn't shot with it. He was bludgeoned to death with the blunt end of it around 18 times until his brainstem was crushed. 19 years after this, another young boy from Wyoming decided to stand up and speak up. The US Senator of his state, Mike Enzi, was addressing the children of his school, and the young student decided to take the opportunity to ask his senator his question. What are you and your comrades doing to improve the life of the LGBT community in Wyoming? The senator replied, as we always say, in Wyoming, you can be just about anything you want to be, as long as you don't push it in somebody's face. He continued, I know a guy who wears a tutu, a ballet skirt, and goes to bars on Friday night and is always surprised that he ends up in fights. The senator then continued, well, he kind of asks for it a little bit. Well, in that case, Matthew Shepard must have also asked for it, just a little bit, to be so unrecognizably beaten that his parents had to identify him by only his dental braces. The people of Wyoming dissented against their own senator, wearing tutus. Men and women across the state wore skirts, took photos of themselves in it, and then shared them as much as they could on social media with a hashtag inspired by Wyoming state motto itself. All together, they stood up in skirts and said, hashtag live and let tutu. The US senator had to issue a written apology in less than a week. Looks like that skirt was asking for a fight after all, a fight it would win. We win when we dissent, and we dissent when the time finally comes. When does the time come, though? We can already see biases, prejudices, guns pointed everywhere at a color, a gender, a caste, a religion. The guns may not be aimed at us today, but what of tomorrow? Will the time only come then when the guns point at us and at those standing next to us, holding our hands, our children, our sons? Will they be raped for being different? Our daughters, will they be killed for the gods we made them worship? Hate only begets more hate. It swells, and as it grows, its weapons only get bigger. Bullets become bombs, and bombs do not discriminate. They destroy everything and kill everyone. Will the time then only finally come when a bomb is dropped upon our children, blowing them apart one day? If that is the case, then the time has come. The time, my friends, has already come. We have already dropped our first nuclear bomb on children 75 years ago in Hiroshima. This bomb only dropped in the air for 44.4 seconds before detonating with the force of 16,000 tons of TNT. It vaporized, literally obliterated everything, 92% of the city's structures. And everyone, instantly killing around 80,000 people, including children. We then dropped another bomb just like this 3 days later in Nagasaki. The first of these two nuclear bombs that also orphaned 2,000 children between 6 and 10 years old had a name. It was called Little Boy. Today, over 14,000 such nuclear weapons still exist in the world. But you know what? There are 7.8 billion ways to dismantle them with great dissent. And with great dissent comes great opportunity. Every day, everywhere, anywhere, even at our office water coolers, the next time we are there, we can start by refusing to join in the laughter at a gay joke. That is dissent. Then, in our office dinners, our classrooms, our families, our boardrooms, in our social media, we can speak up anytime we see any kind of hate, even if not directed at us, especially spread by those we love the most. That is also dissent. Dissent is like water. It simply cannot be contained. It also cannot be countered because it only speaks the truth. Therefore, we can dissent even by just breaking our silence, by just sharing information, the truths behind silenced voices, unmarked graves, manufactured narratives again and again and again. Let our dissent crash against hatred, wearing it away, slowly but surely. Let it also, like water, gently seep into the cracks, the wounds inflicted over decades, and heal them. At 16, I was told I deserved to be raped because of who I was and that I should enjoy it. At 36, 2 decades later and halfway across the world, I was going to dissent again. And this time, it would be to heal myself. I finally found my own truth last year at the gates of a 600-year-old palace, the magnificent Gyeokbokgung Palace in Seoul, South Korea. It is tradition to wear the Korean customary dress known as the hanbok to visit the palace, and so outside its gates, I was trying to find a hanbok to wear at a rental studio. As I looked through the men's hanboks, each one more masculine, virile, and warrior-like than the other, I suddenly realized that all of them stood for everything I was always told I was not, and therefore abused and threatened for as long as I can remember. So I decided to dissent by rejecting all of them. I decided I would wear a skirt, a chima, a woman's hanbok, and therefore only worn by women, as the studio staff firmly pointed out. The palace itself may not let me in. There may be stares, abuse, jeers, even violence. No. Enough. Dissent isn't just our defense. It is also our defiance. This time, I was looking to win, and so I went out looking for a skirt that was asking for a fight. The most beautiful skirt I could find, woven entirely in gold silk from waist to floor, hiding layers and layers of tulle underneath it. Embroidered flowers blossomed from the bottom, one by one, across the golden bell-shaped skirt, like a garden trapped in a snow globe filled with sunsets. I wore it, I stood up, and as I walked into that palace that day, I felt invincible. Not despite the fact that I was wearing a skirt, but because of it. I'd once been told that because of who I was disgusting. Now I saw that when I stood up for who I was beautiful. We all are. We all already are. Each one of us unique. Each one of us powerful enough to stand up in whatever way each of us can. Yes, in 7.8 billion beautiful ways. We make salt, we throw teddies into the air, we wear skirts, we win. The power of our dissent comes from each one of us. We are its infinite beauty. So come, let's dissent. Let's stand up. Let's be powerful. Let's be infinite. And together, let's be beautiful. Thank you.